for rookies across the league. Rookie minicamps rolling out for teams. Some players hoping to make the roster, others pushing for starting positions. No class more interesting, though, I'd argue, than the class of 2025 out in Cleveland. They had a wild draft. Obviously, the headliner was Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round quarterback who we all expected to go on day 1 and day 2. They also took Dillon Gabriel before they took Shedeur Sanders. You also have a pair of running backs in Quinshon Judkins and Sampson, who will also be competing for time, trying to fill in for Nick Chubb. Sampson spoke about that competition within the the running back room.
Yeah, you know, if we go out here and handle business throughout training camp, and, you know, there's also some guys who've been here, you know, so it's a competition all over. But I think this is like the blueprint of the league, you know, the best way it works with running backs. It's a long season, so you want as many people as you can to go in there and split reps and, you know, do good for the team, you know, that keeps everybody fresh. You see it all across the league, and I think we have the opportunity to do that here.
Let's welcome in the gentleman who has watched more tape on all of these guys than all of us combined here. We've got our Ryan Wilson joining us here from With the First Pick podcast. Ryan, let's pick it up talking about my personal favorite running back in this class. It is Quinshon Judkins, of course, out in Cleveland trying to make a name for himself at the NFL. But he does have some competition there. We just heard from Dillon Sampson on what that looks like. When the quarterback situation is as wonky as it is right now, how important is it for those two guys to have a good camp?
Could not be more important. I think Dillon Sampson laid it out perfectly, Haley, in that you can never have too much of a running back by committee, whether your quarterback is a veteran headed for the Hall of Fame or a rookie who's potentially battling another rookie for that starting job. And you talk about Quinshon Judkins, your guy from back in the day. You knew him in high school. He is quite familiar with what it means to be a running back by committee approach to having that running back room, because he went to Ohio State after transferring from Ole Miss, and he and Trey Henderson, all they did was win a national title. And the upside to that, and Dillon sort of touched on it, is that it's low mileage for both guys, and they have different styles. Quinshon's more of a between the tackle bruiser who has the ability to bounce it outside, and Dillon has a little more juice in terms of turning the corner. Dillon did have some fumbling issues last year at Tennessee, but I think when you balance that out with the ability to also use Quinshon Judkins there, it makes perfect sense on a Browns roster that is going to be without Nick Chubb. They're not going to bring him back, and he was the heart and soul of that offense for the longest time there. So this is a turning to the page. The quarterback situation is in flux. We'll figure that out together, but I think there's nothing better for a quarterback than a strong running back room, and I give the Browns credit. We can talk about what they did at quarterback, but I give them credit for going out and bolstering that running back room with those 2 draft picks.
Yeah, Quinshon did tell us, he came on HQ before the draft, and he said that playing with Travion Henderson was actually a benefit to him because he got that 2-back feel, and he could show his versatility there. We'll talk about another running back, though, in Omarion Hampton. He made a name for himself out at UNC. He mentioned on the Jim Rome show, actually, here that he was excited to get to learn from Najee Harris. He called them a dominant duo in the backfield already, and he thinks they're building something special. I know Jim Harbaugh has also been impressed with him. I know it's very early, Ryan, but what do you see out of his usage out in L.A.?
Another fantastic fit. It's interesting because when you talk about these 2 running back situations, usually you have a big bruiser and something of a quicker back. And Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, you have 2 bruisers. Now, Omarion Hampton has track speed, and we saw clips all throughout the pre-draft process of him running away from people. So he can run between the tackles, but he can also bounce it. He's a great blocker, and he's a really good receiver. So they're going to find ways to use him. But it is interesting, Haley, because Jim Harbaugh, when we knew what he's going to do when he arrived from Michigan. That was going to try to run the ball and help out Justin Herbert, and they're continuing down that path. And I'm laughing because they also signed Mekhi Becton, the guard who won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, so they're bolstering the offensive line. And you can see here what Omarion Hampton does, and he did a lot of the same things that Najee did at Alabama, but we tended to forget about those things when he went to Pittsburgh and played behind a not-so-great at times offensive line. I think Najee's going to have a resurgence on that one-year deal, but again, you're going to be able to split the reps because of Omarion Hampton being there as that first-round pick, and then Najee taking some reps as well. And the big winner here, of course, is Justin Herbert, who should have an opportunity behind a better offensive line and a strong run game to push the ball down the field more often and more consistently than we've seen in recent years.
Who's got it better than the Chargers? Right now, Jim Harbaugh feels nobody. All right, let's talk about the Jags, adding a couple of pieces to their mix. Obviously, Travis Hunter took the spotlight, but Bashal Tutin, another guy who could be an impact player in that wide receiver room, or excuse me, the running back room. I actually learned about him, Ryan, because my husband played the NCAA game, and he was the coach of Virginia Tech, and so I got to know Bashal Tutin very well, virtually anyways. But what can Jacksonville fans expect out of him in real life as he gets ready for rookie minicamp?
I'm sure Marcel appreciates the air quotes around the word coach there, but he is absolutely juiced up. And this is great news for Jacqueline. Finally gets a break. The Jacksonville Jaguars appear to be turning the corner. He ran 4.3, and he ran it most of the season in that knee brace there. He is electric, and I know why we're talking about him, in part because Jacqueline, and in part because producer Jack drafted Bashal Tootin in his fantasy league, so he's excited about that. The Jaguars should be excited about that. Trevor Lawrence should be happy. Trevor Etienne should be a little concerned because we'll see what his usage ends up being and whether it ends up being somewhere else. But I think Bashal Tootin's an absolute home run of a pick. He could have gone a round or two higher. And they got LaQuinn Allen as well in the 7th round out of Syracuse, who's also going to have an opportunity to contribute. So again, same blueprint as you had for Justin Herbert in Los Angeles is going to be a blueprint for Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen now in Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jacqueline kind of gave a little fist pump there. She's uncertain about Travis Etienne and the competition, but we'll see how it all works out. Let's stay in the division and talk about the Texans. They had a very clear focus in the draft. I feel like they wanted to put an emphasis on that wide receiver room. They traded for Christian Kirk. They added 2 other guys in Jayden Higgins and Jalen Noel. It kind of feels like it's getting a little a little crowded, Ryan, there. You also have to remember Tank Dell coming back from injuries, too. Of the room that we've seen in the offseason, who do you think has the best shot of being wide receiver 3?
That's a great question because you don't bring in Christian Kirk not to play him. So wide receiver 3 after his 2, and Nico Collins is going to be 1, is probably Jayden Higgins, a 2nd-round pick that they gave a fully guaranteed contract to, which is sort of a fun story. He is closer to Nico Collins in the way he plays. So now you have 2 ginormous receivers playing on the field at the same time, whether it's in the slot or out wide, to go along with Christian Kirk. And then Jalen Noel, Jayden Higgins' teammate at Iowa State, has probably been drafted to replace Tank Dell if Tank isn't ready early on in 25. But Jayden Higgins is a huge downfield making plays down the field, huge catch radius, high point guy, contested catch guy, and it shows up all over his tape. And I'll be honest, Haley, I didn't love Nico Collins coming out, but when he got to Houston with C.J. Stroud, everything clicked. And I think that's going to be the same situation with Jayden Higgins, who's going to have a chance to probably be in that Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation if things go like the Houston Texans hope they do. And that offense has been revamped, the offensive line for C.J. Stroud, who took a ton of hits last year. So there's a lot of reasons for optimism. And you can never have too many wide receivers if you're a quarterback. I think C.J. Stroud probably would agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a great situation for him. They fixed the O-line. Now he's got weapons aplenty to throw to. Ryan Wilson joining us here on CBS Sports.
5 matchups, BMAC, that you are most looking forward to as we were waiting for that official schedule release, Haley.
And we're going to pick it up, of course, with the Super Bowl rematch, BMAC. I feel like a lot of people were excited to see the Eagles and the Chiefs. It maybe left a little something for it. So as this game will be played in Kansas City, what do you expect out of round 2 between these two? Or round 3, I guess, at this point.
A Super Bowl-like atmosphere. Anytime you get a chance to have a Super Bowl rematch in the regular season, number 1, is highly anticipated, and number 2, you will see flawless-like football being played for 4 quarters. This is top dog on my list because it's the rematch. You look at what we saw a year ago, especially how the season ended in New Orleans, a dominating performance by the Philadelphia Eagles, a game in which Jalen Hurts outplayed Pat Mahomes by far, and their defense was just unbelievable against Pat Mahomes, of course, in his offensive line play. Now, the key caveat for this matchup, this will be the first time Jalen Hurts will face off against Kansas City in a non-Super Bowl game. He's 1-1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, but those 2 match, of course, in a Super Bowl atmosphere. Secondly, this will be Jalen Hurts' first time traveling to Arrowhead Stadium, a very, very historical football environment, often known to be very, very difficult for opposing teams and opposing quarterbacks. What will he have in store in trying to face off against that challenge? But like I said, anytime you have an opportunity to see a Super Bowl rematch in regular season play, it's highly anticipated, and I'm anticipating seeing great football from either side.
So we're talking about great football and the matchups that you're looking forward to, BMAC, and we're also talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs once again, but this time talking about them facing Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Of course, anytime these 2 quarterbacks go head-to-head, it is must-see TV, especially in the playoffs. We're all wondering, is this finally the year for the Bills? Is that Super Bowl window closed? But BMAC, what are you looking forward here to in yet another installment of Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes?
I can tell you this much. This is probably the best rivalry in football when you look at both organizations, and the same can be said for both quarterbacks because they're not in the same